Hello and welcome to Volt Vehicles. Here I'm going to be discussing with you guys my top 4 cheap electric bikes for range, because this is something that interests me a lot as I value range a lot on my electric bikes. I like to use an electric bike for very long trips, and I love the feeling of just being able to know that I can go to a lot of locations and not having to worry about the battery just being drained. I like to go a lot on the countryside, so it's going to be a lot of long journeys for me. So it's a nice feeling having a really long range on my electric bike. So to have a very long range electric bike, you're going to first want to find an electric bike with a big battery. How do you know how big a battery is? You want to look how many watt hours it has. So watt hours, when you multiply the amp hours, the AH, with the volts, the 36. So multiply 36 with 19.2. And it turns out to be about 690 watt hours on this bike here. That is the capacity of the bike. So you basically want to have as big of a battery as possible. So this is the first bike I wanted to show you guys, which I think are very good, like a lot of range to price ratio we've got here. The Engway C20 Pro. This bike goes, depending on the special offer, can go for very cheap prices, like 850 euros, and probably if you apply some discount codes, so you can get even lower. This bike has a whopping 19.2 amp hour battery with 36 volt system, so you can get really far on this. Based on videos, it seems like you can get a range up to about 70 kilometers plus. So this is a very long range electric bike you can have here. Another very good bang for your buck long range electric bike is the Fido L3, and this is you could say it's a battery on wheels, because this has got probably one of the biggest batteries I've ever seen on a small format bike like this. If we go here and look at the specs, we go here and we see that this has got a 1100 watt hour battery, 23 amp hours and 48 volts. It's a massive battery. This is probably going to be able to take you up to like 100 kilometers. The problem with this bike though, compared to the C20 Pro, is that it doesn't have gears. So it only has one gear, and this is going to make it so that you can't really go so fast. The pedal assist, based on in many people's testings, it has been shown that this bike is not able to get particularly fast with pedal assist. It goes up to like 20 kilometers an hour, something like that, and it's just a lot to do with that it's got only one gear, so you're not able to get enough cadence unless you're pedaling really fast. You're going to get to that. But if you were to use throttle, then this is really good. The only problem is that throttle in many EU countries is illegal, but this e-bike is also pretty illegal in many EU countries because it's got a 350 watt motor as well. But it is really long range. It's got fenders, it's got a lot of multifunctional purposes with a little rack here. So it's a cool little bike, but it's bad for pedal assist, so just keep that in mind. That's the reason I have not got it myself. I was actually considering to get this, but because of its pedal assist being bad, I don't want to get it. Otherwise, look at the price, $799 with this discount code for that massive battery. Like the battery almost covers the cost of the battery in itself. This is something I would consider if you want to use a lot of throttle and get around really far. Another bike to consider would be the Engway Engine Pro. This is not an as long range electric bike as the previous ones. It gets about 50 to 60 kilometers range. I have, however, had this myself, so I can say definitely it's still got a decent range. And for me, that is a pretty good range, especially considering what you get, because this is a really heavy bike, very wide tires, very comfortable with dual suspension. You see suspension here, suspension there. Got an over 700 watt hour battery, because it's got 16 amp hours, but it's got 48 volts here, so it's still a very big battery on this thing. The thing is, it's a very heavy bike, so it doesn't get maybe as much range as a C20 Pro. Otherwise, the C20 Pro actually has a bit of a smaller battery. So definitely consider this if you want to have a really comfortable, robust bike and still want to have some good range. The fourth type of electric bike, I could say, that you get a lot of range for your money, is to actually build your own. And that's actually what I'm working on doing right now. I'm building my own electric bike. And that's because you can choose specifically a battery that has got a very big range. And you can often get these for big discounts. Now, there's not so much discounts on this. It's still a pretty expensive battery. But you can look at this. You can choose, for example, 48 volt with a 28 amp hour. This is like 1300 watt hour. So it's a massive battery. You're going to get over 100 kilometers in this. And the great thing about this is that this will be a lot cheaper than often getting a similar sized battery on a pre-built electric bike, but it's also pretty much impossible to get this size of battery on a pre-built electric bike. So you can then, if you really want to go hardcore for range, get a very light electric bike with thin tires, then put this on it, you're going to be able to go forever. So this is definitely something I would consider. If you want to have a good range for a cheap cost, then definitely consider building your own, because it's very difficult otherwise to usually get really long range electric bikes for a good price. And the great thing here is you can also choose your motor, the one you want to have. So if you say you have problems with legalities, say if you're in the EU, you want to have 250 watt motor, then you can specifically choose a 250 watt motor to put on your electric bike, and you can specifically choose the battery you want. So I definitely recommend building your own. That's exactly what I'm doing right now, because this is just going to get you insane range. No, you're not going to be able to find very few pre-builts with 28 amp hours and 48 volts. So those are my top 4 electric bikes, or electric bike options, I would say, if you want to get a really long range bike for as little money as possible. The Engway C20 Pro, the Fido L3, the Engway Engine Pro, and possibly building your own with a really big battery. The C20 Pro is a good overall bike. The Fido L3 is good with a really big battery. Problem is that its pedelecs is not good. The Engway Engine Pro is a little bit more expensive. It's maybe not got as big range as the previous bikes, but it's a really comfortable ride. And building your own bike, I think, is probably one of the better options, because you're going to be able to get a really big battery, bigger than any of the other bikes, for a cheaper price, and you can choose specifically the type of bike you want and the type of motor you want to have on it. So hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you learned something new. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. I'll catch you guys later.